I'm Genevieve Randall. I am music director for Nebraska Public Media, and I am so pleased for us to support Lincoln Symphony Orchestra with these pre-concert chats. It is always fun to meet composers and musicians and talk about the music ahead, but also we occasionally feature these Lincoln Symphony Orchestra concerts on our occasional series, Nebraska Concerts, on Monday evenings. So keep an eye on our schedules for that. For this concert at the Lead Center, we get to meet the symphony's 2023 to 2026 composer in residence, Elena Ruehr, who is joining us. And we also get to hear on the concert a premiere of her work, Unquiet Earth. Elena, such a pleasure to meet you.
I'm so excited to be here and to do this. It's so cool.
It is super cool.
We, it is, and we can't tell you how excited we are too. A wonderful way. I mean, because just love this piece of music of yours, and you'll talk about that in a second. But I just love that this is a great introduction for our orchestra to meet our composer in residence because they haven't met her yet, and for our audience, our symphony family, to meet Elena Ruehr. Welcome, Elena.
Thank you.
And later we'll be chatting as well with Mark Clinton because he is playing a piano concerto by Brahms on the other half of this concert. So we're going to start here, Elena, with you. You're currently based in Boston, is that correct?
That's true.
Okay.
I teach at MIT and I've been there for 30 years. So,
I love it.
How did you become composer in residence with Lincoln Symphony Orchestra?
Oh, it was basically through Anton Miller, who is my friend who recommended me. And I was very, very excited to do it. Yeah.
Very
When
cool.
we were discussing this last season, I was going through various names and all, and you don't. I mean, it's very difficult to compare composers, and then it becomes a very personal thing. Like all music is, basically. You want to be subjective, you want to be objective about it, but you end up being subjective about it. And Anton sent me a few things of Elena's, and he said, just take a listen to this, see what you think. And of course, that was it. That was the end of my search. I just loved it. It was great.
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic pieces. I mean, Elena, I hope that you and I get to talk more over the years here at some point, because I've got a full list of questions for you about things like Michigan and small towns and flute. I'm a flutist, so we got to talk about that, and piano and rock and roll bands, I noticed. So there's much more for us to explore together. But let's make sure we've got time to give folks a preview of this particular piece for this concert here. So this is titled Unquiet Earth, and it's dedicated to the memory of your mom. Can you give us the kind of short synopsis and tell us about her? She sounds amazing.
So my mom was a wonderful woman. I can share my screen and show a picture of her. Would that be cool?
Oh, I'd love
Yeah,
it.
Okay,
absolutely.
here it goes. There she is with my dad.
Oh,
And anyway, just take a look at her. She was the smartest person I've ever known. She was a very warm Midwestern woman, very very concerned about, very in love with the environment, very in love with the planet. They lived in a little town in Michigan, and it was in the Upper Peninsula, so it was really remote. And they didn't grow up there, but they migrated there. And my mom passed, but my dad is still there. And
oh,
it was so beautiful. It was just filled with Lake Superior, and it was undeveloped and very beautiful. So when she passed, I wanted to write a piece about that place and about our relationship to nature and how much we love it, and also how we're a little worried, you know?
yeah,
So
true.
called Unquiet Earth because we're kind of worried, but it's mostly a love song to the beauty of the planet. You can't save something that you don't love. So you have to love it first.
Yeah,
So
tell me
anyway,
a little, Elena, tell me a little more about the word unquiet and what you mean by using the word unquiet in the title.
well, my mom was a very early environmentalist, and she had me read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring when I was like 13
Yeah.
years old. And I have been concerned about what we're doing to the planet since I was that old, you know. And I feel like the piece that I wrote is more about the beauty of the world that we live in, but it has these little moments where you go, uh-oh, what are we doing? You
Mhm.
know? So it's mostly a kind of positive look, but it's got these little dark turns. And you know,
And this is a
I
multimedia piece. So I want to hear from both of you about this. Ed, I want you to start with this one. Talk to me about rehearsing the orchestra and working with a piece that's multimedia.
Well, the multimedia part of this is not as difficult in terms of coordination. Because it's not that it has to be a click track or anything like that, but it's what I think is so what I feel is so incredibly fabulous about this is that I fell in love separately with the images and the music, and then when I realized where they went, you know, and how they went together, I found it awesome. um, I think there was a review, Elena, of you in, I can't remember whether it was LA Times or New York Times, but it said um, how beautiful and lyrical and sweeping your melodies can be. You know, we people of my age have gone through many transformations of quote unquote contemporary or modern music. I mean, from having studied the New Viennese school through all of this serialistic composers, through the split that happened in the 20th century between serialism and atonalism and tonality, going into even a wider split with the popular music, whether you go, you know, from Berlin or Gershwin or Jerome Kern through Cole Porter, through the Beatles, through uh, ABBA. I mean, it's just incredible. And then you have these other classical composers who, on one side, like Bernstein and Copland, versus the other side of the Dalla Piccolos, the Del Tredicis, Stackhausens, Milton Babbitt, and all that. It's an incredibly kaleidoscopic thing, and it really confused people like me as to where do I want to direct this enormous ship of music through the 20th century. And Elena and I have discussed it a little bit, but the fact that you don't hear a lot of that kind of music, and when I say that kind of music, the music that was kind of developed with Sessions and Carter and Willie Schumann, and you don't see a lot of that really programmed anymore. And then there was a turn toward the end of the 20th century into this tonality and new wave music and beautiful kind of comforting tonality. And now we in the 21st century, after over 2 decades of working in this century, there's a wonderful amalgamation. And I think that that's what composers like Elena Ruehr are all about. We've kind of educated our listeners through film music and over the last several decades into being able to accept a lot more um, way out there music. So they're not, our audiences are not shocked the way they were back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s of the 20th century. There's a big difference. And what I absolutely love about Elena's music is this incredible sweep that happens right from the beginning. And you get these recurring themes. In this particular piece, it was a folk song that your mother taught you, I believe you said, or that she sang to you.
no, my mother sang me lots of folk songs, but I actually made this one up.
Oh, this is even better. I love it because it's a brand new folk song. But
Folk song.
it comes it comes in honor of her. It comes in many different ways and forms, and it sneaks in, and you become more and more involved with the music and comforted by it, and actually kind of swept away by it. And that's you know that's how I that's why I love this piece. And then you have these fantastic natural images from the Upper Peninsula. It's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
I have to insert here that the images are by Steve Grimm, who is a photographer and you know, who lives in my mom's hometown.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Well, the Upper Peninsula, I have to say, if no one has been to Michigan, I mean, you'll be smitten with the mitten if you go because it's absolutely beautiful. It is like no other place in the country. It blows my mind that if you plow up a field in Nebraska, it turns back to grass and weeds and flowers. But if you plow up some area of land in Michigan, it turns back into trees and forest. And I think that's just amazing about Michigan. So, so there's that. And I'm glad you credited the photographer too. Before I let you go, because we're totally running out of time and we need to give soloist Mark Clinton a little bit of time here too. What I want to know is, having seen that beautiful photo of your mom with your dad, has he heard the piece and what does he think about this?
Oh, my dad is 92 and
God
he's
bless him. Great.
he's maybe not as interested in that as he used to be. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, I understand. Oh my goodness. Well, such a personal piece for you, Elena.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
it helpful to you as the composer? We're experiencing beauty as the audience, of course, and the musicians who are playing it. Is it cathartic for you? Is it hard for you?
I think it's more that when I was writing it, my mom had just passed and I felt like she was sitting on my shoulder. Like I felt her spirit with me. And I used to improvise at the piano when she was making dinner. And if it was raining outside, I'd make rainy sounds. If it was sunny, I'd make sunny sounds, you know, that kind of stuff. And to me, this piece is sort of like that. It's sort of improvising around the beauty of the natural world and, you know, just enjoying feeling like you're an eagle and soaring over the landscape and
And
seeing the
through
beauty.
different seasons also, because it starts
Yeah.
with the frozen earth and then it opens up and then it comes back into it. The cycle is wonderful. I mean, it's a brilliant piece, and I think people you can. What I love about it is that you can enjoy this piece on so many different levels. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Ed. You're such a sweetie.
Well, it's you know it's a terrific way to introduce you to our community, and I'm really very excited about this. This is
Well,
wonderful.
I really am. You know, I lived in Nebraska when I was a little baby kid. I was 2 and 3. I lived in Omaha,
Wow.
and I I'm from the Midwest, and I feel really excited to meet your audience, and I'm really hopeful that they'll get what I'm doing.
I'm sure they will. They can't miss it. It's great.
Just fantastic. And Elena, I can't wait to talk with you more and let listeners and audience who come to Lincoln Symphony Orchestra know more about you. And this is a fantastic introduction. Thanks so much for taking time to be part of our pre-concert chat.
Hey, thanks.
So now we'll welcome to our pre-concert chat tonight's soloist or this week's soloist, depending on when you're watching this pre-concert chat, and that is Mark Clinton. And I will say this, Mark Clinton teaches at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He's faculty there. I think the best way to say it is, Mark, you have a super impressive bio of like awards and achievements, amazing recordings, and people should just read all about you in the program notes or look you up online because I was mind blown. I did not know that you started some lessons at Peabody Conservatory where Ed used to teach when you were 8.
That's correct. Actually, I had met our teacher and mentor, Leon Fleischer. I'd been introduced to him actually when I was 5 years old, of all things. And my parents met with him, and he said, "Listen, I think he's doing okay. Bring him back in a couple of years." And we moved in the interim. I changed teachers and came back, and Leon said, well, I don't know. He's not progressing as much as I would like. Why don't you bring him to Baltimore? And so we moved to Baltimore, and I was I was studying with one of his graduate students at the time, Julian Martin, who's now had a huge career and is at the Juilliard School, until I was old enough to be in Leon's studio as an undergraduate. So, yeah.
That is so cool. What an amazing experience. So between Ed here and Mark, we've got the Peabody connection is what I'm calling it.
We do. And I mean, even as an undergrad, I sang in the Peabody chorus, and guess who conducted it?
Well, I actually have to say, because you already opened up the Pandora's box here, the teacher that this graduate student that Mark first studied with, Julian Martin, was my lesson mate with Leon Fleischer. Leon taught in groups of 3, 2-hour sessions of 3 people, and whoever was ready to play something always got, then to play, and the rest of us listened on, or sometimes all 3 of us did that time. But because Julian was quite a pianist, all of the other Leon students were so incredible, such incredible pianists. When Julian would go away for a concert tour of whatever, he once said to me, Ed, I understand you've taught piano. Would you like to teach my class while I'm away? And I said, absolutely. I would be honored. It would be great. And who was in that class but Mark Clinton? And that's how I got to know Mark before he even got to Peabody. Before he even entered the conservatory, and I got to know his parents, and they lived in Bowie, and I would go down there for dinners, and it was just like old home week. I mean, I cannot tell you how much I freaked out when Mark came up after my very first concert with Lincoln Symphony and said, "Hey Ed, how you doing?" And I was like, "What the heck are you doing here?" And he said, I'm on the piano faculty at the university. I mean, it was so fortuitous. It was just the most beautiful thing. It really was.
I think you can honestly say that we've had a lifetime of connections. It goes way back.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. Isn't that great?
Well, it's fun to know that we've got almost like family on stage during this conference.
Oh, I consider Ed family, absolutely. And by the way, just so that you know, he taught me everything I know about the piano.
Your check is in the mail, Mark. It'll be arriving any day now.
I love this. Well, it's certainly great to have you featured on Brahms' first piano concerto. Let's just talk a little bit about the piece, and then I want to talk about your relationship with it. Speaking of relationships, though, my first question is really like, where was this in Brahms' career? How much connection did he have with the Schumanns at this time? Is there any of that, Clara stuff going on?
The second movement is all Clara, the slow movement.
It's a love song.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's early. It's Opus 15, so it's a young man's piece. There's no question. I'm pushing the limits on this one because I mean, I think Ed and I were discussing it a while back. It's like a symphony wrapped up with a huge solo piano part. And then with moments of incredible chamber music kind of beauty infused into it. It's just, it's an unbelievable piece.
It's an all-encompassing work of music.
It's a conversation, right? Between the piano and, like Mark was saying, these kind of chamber ensembles. Ed, talk a little bit about that texture, what people can listen for in that aspect.
Well, being an early piece of Brahms, presents all kinds of challenges for orchestra, for the soloist, technically and musically, because he was, I mean, as great a piece of music. Well, part of the reason why it is such a great piece of music is that he was knocking on doors and opening doors that hadn't been opened up to this point, and the result was this incredible piano concerto that we know of as one of the great piano concertos ever written. What I love is the very, very opening, which is it's startling, because you get this enormous downbeat of just the note D, and a big bang, you might call it, on the timpani. But the first harmony that you hear is not in D. And that's what it's a chord that is related to the key of D minor, but it is not. And so, like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, you don't really know what the key is for quite a while. And you get these enormous motives that are going to be motives that you're going to hear throughout the piece in so many different ways, and many of which you're not going to even recognize, but they are there. Which is a very binding aspect of the piece itself, because it truly is an all-inclusive piece. It by far, from the very first downbeat to the very end, to the very cutoff. It also, as we had mentioned earlier, has one of the most exquisitely beautiful middle movements that we always, up to this point, said no one could play it except Leon Fleischer. And now the mantle is on the shoulders of this great pianist. Legend, it's true, Mark. You now are carrying on that whole tradition of color, of sound, of tone, of implications of sound, of the stasis of being lifted into a moment of just being hung up in the beauty of ethereal space and
Transcendence.
Yeah, it's just, it's one of the, I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever written. And of course, when Leon Fleischer recorded it with the Cleveland Orchestra, George Sell, it is to this day the definitive recording of that piece, until we put ours out, and then
we'll talk. But no, and what's amazing about that is it has stood the test of time, that recording. I mean, because I believe it was released in 1958.
That sounds correct.
It's about right. And I mean, how many years has it been? It's been 60 some years, and still it's recognized. Can I add one thing to what Ed was talking about, the introduction of the themes in the first movement? Brahms, I think, because he was a pianist, saved one of the best themes for himself.
That's right.
And that is right. in the orchestral exposition, there's one theme that you don't get, and it doesn't happen until the piano exposition, and then Brahms drops the orchestra out, and the piano has this extended solo, absolutely beautiful lyrical second theme, and so yeah, he saved that one, I think, for himself.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, in the minute or so, just a little over a minute that we have left here, I was thinking about, and you've talked a lot about traditions being passed on, and your teacher Leon Fleischer. As a pianist, surely you've been introduced to this years ago and played it before. Can you talk to folks a little bit about what it's like as a pianist to first meet a piece and work on it, and then play it again someplace, and then comes up again later in your life? How does your relationship with the piece change over that time?
Yeah, that's a really insightful question, because I mean, you evolve as a person, not just as a pianist. I mean, it's all related, right? But yeah, I've played this piece probably 4 or 5 times previously now, and coming back to it this time, my lens is different, and I see things that I maybe didn't notice previously, or I see things differently than I saw them previously.
Definitely.
It's a constantly evolving thing, and I would like to think that, one of the few benefits of getting older is that maybe you're a little wiser. So
I hope so, but I also hope not.
Yeah,
because you have to throw abandon just away and go for it. That's what Brahms actually is all about. But you have to have the foundations to know how to do that. An interesting side note is that one of the very first soloists I had with Lincoln Symphony was Leon Fleischer. And it was, he played this piece. It was shortly after he regained the use of his right hand again. And he did this. And I think it was in the year 99 or 2000, that season, that that he came to play it. Was when we were in Kimball Hall back in the medieval days. But now we've got the mantle on Maestro Clinton, and I can't wait for everybody to experience this performance. Really,
I'm really looking forward to it. And I might add, that performance in Kimball, I just sat there and wept the entire second movement.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Well, Mark Clinton, we're so excited to have you bring your wisdom to this piece, having performed it a few times before, getting to again on this concert with Lincoln Symphony Orchestra. And depending on when people are enjoying this pre-concert chat, that is either tonight at 7:30 at the Lead Center or this Friday at 7:30 at the Lead Center, also featuring a premiere of a work by Elena Ruehr, who is the new composer in residence with Lincoln Symphony Orchestra. Mark Clinton, Maestro Ed Polachek, my beloved Ed Polachek, as I always like to say, thank you so much for joining us here for this pre-concert chat.
Thank you, Genevieve.
Thank you. Can't thank you.
Appreciate it.